I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods, yeah. One in particular, I'm just a messenger, let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things, promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop, give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire, I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy roundtable, fantasy roundtable, yeah. Fantasy roundtable, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy roundtable, fantasy roundtable, woo. Fantasy roundtable, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast, brought to you by the Pigskin Podcast Network. You can find them at PigskinPodNet on Twitter, or you can search the hashtag TPPN. Matt and Matt are back together. It's been a couple Wednesdays, but I'm glad to be back right as my teams are eliminated from the Fantasy Football Finals to talk about how just absolutely devastating that is. It's not been fun.
No.
It was you know what? I know people hate hearing about, or so they say, everybody. I actually don't mind it when I'm listening to other people's podcasts, as long as it's not like a full podcast. I do like to hear how other people are doing. I made 6. I dropped a significant amount of leagues. Usually I'm in like 50 something. I think I was in 32 this year. I made 6 semifinals and got bounced from all of them. Only one was a blowout too. The rest of them were by less than 7 points.
And it was a horrendous week for star players.
It really was. And I'll be honest, the biggest one that hurt the most is my main home dynasty league, where I sort of blew up the league this year. I'm the commissioner. This league has been around this is our 9th year, so we'll be going into our 10th year this offseason. I had won it for the second time the entire time this league has been around this past season, and there was just 2 really, really bad teams, and one of them we've had to replace the coach or the owner in that spot like twice in the past 5 years, and it was kind of like, man, I want to do something to just kind of help this out. So we decided to do almost like a keeper league. It was like, hey, it was like 32-man rosters. Like, everybody gets to keep 6 players, and we're just going to redraft everything, including rookie picks, everything, to just kind of balance it back out. And I lost a ton of depth off my team. I had a lot of really good players. Still made it to the semifinals, that is just mentioned. But as you mentioned, the top guys not doing it, like Devontae Adams. This league I lost by 5 points. Devontae Adams gave me 4. Justin Herbert, what did he give you? 9 points? I don't even remember. It was not pretty. And to lose by 7 points, and for a chance to go back-to-back, it hurt. Still put up 140 points, so it was a good day. But, yeah, it sucked to see that. I imagine a lot of you are feeling the same pain to have Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Justin Herbert, was Dalvin Cook one of those other guys who had a bad week? Like, it's just a rough week for the studs.
So that was a semifinal. I was heavily favored going in. One of the leagues where I figured I was going to win. I rolled it's a super flex. I rolled Herbert and Josh Allen, Kamara, Ken Walker, Diggs, Lamb, St. Brown, Dalton Schultz at tight end, Juju, Deontay Johnson, and Terry McLaurin. And I, of course, lost by 12 points, with Diggs giving me 4.6 and Herbert 5.5. Herbert getting outscored by Tyler Huntley by 10 points in a 12-point loss.
Yeah,
is something of a bitter pill to swallow.
It really is. And I was talking to someone about that today, and like I do get the optimism. This is a redraft or a dynasty league?
Dynasty league.
So so I bring that up because I was talking to somebody about that today, and they were like, well, what's the rest of your roster look like? So we were just kind of talking back and forth. I'm like, okay, well, like, you'll still be good next year. I'm like, so you think. But like a bunch of these players could get injured, like something happen. Like fantasy football is so fickle that it doesn't really matter how good your team looks right now because it could completely blow up in your face again next year. So it hurts to lose like that, especially with, as you mentioned, the studs who have, if we're being honest, maybe outside of Kamara, who I know kind of struggled this year, like those guys carried you all year long, and then the second biggest week of the year for them to kind of come up short. It definitely sucks.
It hurt me too because Deonta Foreman had been so bad for a couple weeks, and Dennis and I had been talking about that. And so I pulled him out and I put Juju in because I thought, hey, they're probably going to throw the ball over the Seahawks, and Deonta Foreman's been horrendous. So then you had those two guys that kind of bombed out while Foreman just destroyed Detroit. It was a humbling experience. I also wasn't sure if Waller was going to get activated, so I rolled Schultz, and Waller ended up, the Raiders sucked, but he had a touchdown.
So I feel you, and here's one that drives me crazy right here, and I promise we're going to move on to actual fantasy news. We do have a lot of it. So in this matchup, and I know it's one of those things where, like, I guess tell me what you would have done, because I feel like I made the right decisions at the time, but it definitely came back to haunt me. Same thing. Ramondre Stevenson, been killing. I had Deonta Foreman in my flex spot, swapped them out. But then, so I lost in this matchup by one. So that one doesn't really save me much. Like, I think I would have lost by one. What killed me was, and I wish I would have left it alone. For those of you who don't know, I was doing a lot of traveling this weekend and everything. I had the Rams defense in, and I switched it out for Cleveland. I actually meant to put the Chargers defense in. Had I just gone with either one of those, though, I win.
Yeah.
It gives you 3 points.
Well, that Rams-Broncos game was completely contrary. So those of you that follow Campus Can't know that I do a sit-start every week. And I've been, there are weeks where you're 500. It doesn't always pan out because I hold myself, it's got to be top 12 for quarterback, running back, and tight end, and it's got to be top 24 for running back, receiver. And when I say sit, they have to fall outside that. And, there's a lot of bubble area, especially with tight end. I went 0-4 in starts this week. My starts were Justin Fields, Ramondre Stevenson, Zay Jones, and Dallas Goedert. Goddard was tight end 13, so that one was galling. Right. But it just was horrendous luck. And my sits, which I thought were pretty good, Tyler Higbee's been pretty terrible most of the season. And, of course, Baker Mayfield only has eyes for Higbee this week, and he ends up tight end. Mayfield was one of my sits. He had not looked good the week before. The Rams offense was missing a ton of weapons, and they're going against Patrick Surtain and Justin Simmons. It seemed like, they all seemed like real good ideas. My only one that I hit was I said Demarcus Robinson wouldn't finish top 24 because the Ravens don't have enough pass volume. You know what? He got a touchdown just to make my heart stop, but I was right. Deonta Foreman was my other sit just because they were using a 3-man rotation. They're still using a crazy 3-man rotation. It was one of those weeks.
Yeah, it was. I will tell you when I got upset. Obviously, most of these games were played on Saturday. Obviously, I was doing a lot of Christmas stuff and everything. But I was at
work. I didn't get to see a single game on Saturday.
So I had the stuff on. I had a red zone on in the background, and I'm sitting there doing some stuff, making sure everything was good with the tree, doing some other Christmas stuff, getting ready. So we were going to actually go visit my mother-in-law, going out of town. And all I hear is Scott Hansen say, and that's the second big run for Deonta Foreman, who is now almost over 100 yards, and we're just going into the second quarter. And I was like, wait, what? No. I benched him for Ramondre? Great. So, yeah, not a great week, but you live, you learn. It is the one thing about fantasy football, right? Because if you're on the opposite side of those decisions, you're having a great day. You're feeling great about yourself. Like, man, what a great call to start Deonta Foreman over Ramondre Stevenson. I'm glad I left the Rams defense in and all that other stuff. But sometimes it unfortunately works against you as well. It's why we love to hate fantasy football. All right. Let's talk a little bit about that Justin Herbert performance, as the Chargers do end up beating the Colts 22-3, and Herbert and the Chargers officially lock in their playoff spots, something they were not able to do last year. But, Matt, do we really see them as contenders for the Super Bowl in the AFC?
I liked that they were getting healthier, and it seemed like they were peaking at the right time. And I was actually impressed with wins over the Dolphins and the Titans. Until now, you've had a little bit more time to put those into context. The Dolphins have lost 4 straight and have been very confusing on offense all the way around. The Titans offense has been pretty dreadful. I mean, they just lost to the Texans. So you start reevaluating that a little bit. Still, I think I said before a couple weeks ago, I thought the Chargers had the best chance to win out, end up possibly getting the 5th seed in the AFC, which could be, ironically might end up having them play a Jaguars team that blew them out earlier in the season, which would be an interesting week 1. I still think they're tracking that way. They have the Rams and then the Broncos. They're better than those teams. I think it is a big mental hurdle for both Herbert and Staley to be able to get into the playoffs, because that was something that was lacking. They had appeared to be going the wrong way in the middle of the season. I do think it's good. They've won 3 in a row. If they win out, going in 11-6 isn't going to be that far off of what we thought. They took a radically different path, but it isn't that far off of where we thought they would end up being. And with as open as the AFC has seemingly been, I think they have a chance. To me, it's still Bills, Chiefs, Bengals in that order that I trust. But like a Ravens team that's going to get in, I have massive questions about their offense. Whoever wins the AFC South, big questions. And whoever gets that final wild card is going to have been kind of limping, no matter which one of, I think it's going to end up being one of the AFC East teams. Whichever one gets in there has serious questions. So I don't think they're in terrible shape as a contender.
Yeah, I think they're closer to the Bengals than they are the Bills and the Chiefs for me. And that is really, as you just mentioned, if they can kind of continue to put everything together. We've seen 2 good weeks and they've kind of struggled here and there. Herbert still kind of seems off a little bit. I don't know what's going on with that. It's just going to be very intriguing to see what happens with them. I won't. Part of me kind of hope they wouldn't, because I'm just not sure Staley's it. And I wonder how much of this is kind of him. But they are going to make it, and I'm excited to see what happens. They're clear. I don't think going to make the Super Bowl like I had predicted. I believe I predicted them to make it and lose to the Packers, which that was not a great prediction.
It's better than Dennis.
But yeah, what did he have again? I forgot. He had the Rams Chargers, right? That was his Super Bowl, I think. So, we'll see. I'm excited to see him in there because he has not had a chance to get in. I love Justin Herbert, the player. I think he is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. It's just been a weird year for him. He's definitely had moments, but I feel like he's struggled more often than he has produced. And I don't know how much of that goes to the ribs. I really don't. It really seemed like that was a big cause of his struggles early on. Then he kind of looked like he got past it. Not so much here lately. Speaking of quarterbacks who have not really gotten past it, Jeff Saturday, did he kind of trash Matt Ryan? Is that quote true, or is that a false report?
I mean, I don't think he was incredibly favorable toward Matt Ryan. I don't know what the Colts are doing. I don't really understand if you were past Matt Ryan, why it wasn't back to Sam Ehlinger. I don't know what you need to see from Nick Foles, but he was not it. And
yeah, he was bad.
Every time he threw an interception, they'd cut to him like staring at the replay, trying to figure out how it possibly happened. And you're watching the replay and I'm like, bro, you didn't even throw it where anyone on your team is.
Yeah. Well, I was curious. So it must have been a fake report, which I assumed, but I saw someone post a graphic today. It's the one thing I hate about like having people who are really good with graphics and everything. It looked like a legit thing where Jeff Saturday said something to the effect of, Matt Ryan is the worst quarterback that I've coached, and I've coached high school football. And so I was like, there's no way that he really said that, but I just wanted to double check. See, I don't get that either, but maybe it's they're really trying to lock in that number 1 overall pick. And I do know that there's really nothing important to talk about from the Colts side of things, if I'm being honest. So let's talk about the report I saw earlier.
But they don't have their first round pick, I thought, right?
Yeah, they do.
They do this year?
Yeah, this year they do. Yeah, and I think they're 3 right now, but I believe if they lose and the Texans win, I think
they've got to be
Bears.
further back than that because they have 4 wins and they have that stupid tie, which is going to actually give them a better The Bears are below them. The
I know
Texans
the
are below
Bears
them. The
are.
Broncos are below them. The Rams have won a couple of games, so they pulled themselves out. Maybe that is it now. Maybe they're 4.
I think therefore I know for sure that I remember them or listening to a thing talk about today where the Bears and the Texans both have to win for them to have a shot to getting down to the number 1 pick. But I don't remember if
and Denver would have
right that
Denver would
is up
have
there.
to win
or,
too
sorry,
because we're 4-11.
the
They're 4-10-1.
Seahawks. Technically, the Seahawks have that
Yeah.
pick because they traded for. So they're number 5 right now.
Thanks
I'm
for
sorry.
that. Thanks
I
for that, by
apologize.
the
I
way.
apologize. Yes, it's Houston, Chicago, Seattle, Arizona, Indy right now. Is
Oh, that's right. I
order.
forgot the Cardinals are horrendous.
Yeah,
too. My
yeah, they're
God.
really bad too.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
teams that you just did not expect to take a. We didn't think
Yeah.
they'd be good, but we didn't expect them to take a dump. And none of those teams are in the NFC South. Who would have thought?
What's even crazier is the fact that, and again, I hate to bring this up, but like Seattle and Detroit, who we thought would be up there, neither one of their picks are the ones that are actually up in the top 10. It's the Rams and the Broncos picks. Both of theirs are further back. So it's been a very insane year, but there are reports now that they're still considering keeping Jeff Saturday on as coach. They can't do that, right? They can't.
I mean, we're going to have to do a wellness check on Tony if they keep Jeff Saturday.
I imagine he's not very happy right now, but who knows?
What's to be happy about?
You're going to have a top 4 pick. Probably going to have at least a quarterback.
But see that. But I think we've talked about though beyond the top 2, and it's very possible. Like if Chicago and Seattle are top 2 picks, or top 4 picks, maybe they don't take one of those quarterbacks. Chicago should be sticking with Justin Fields. Houston definitely is taking a quarterback. Seattle is more of an open question to me, I guess. Arizona shouldn't probably take a quarterback. So maybe they luck into it that way, but big questions.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see what they end up doing. So a few news and notes items here before we jump into the Thursday night preview. J.J. Watt. Sounds like he is going to retire. I kind of hate this for him. Obviously been one of the better defensive players for, I'd say close to the past decade, longer than the past decade.
Over a decade. 2011 was his rookie year.
Been an amazing player to watch, obviously, with the Texans now here at the end of his career with Arizona. One of the reasons I kind of hoped Arizona would be able to figure it out, I would have loved to see him be able to get a Super Bowl. Just the injuries, I think, have really kind of piled on. He is a new father now, looking like he's just ready for the next stage in his life.
Yeah, and he's looked really good down the stretch here. It looks like a guy that could continue playing, but at the same time, he's also a guy that's had some big injuries, some back injuries, some neck injuries. It makes total sense that he'd want to walk away, especially Arizona's not going anywhere this year. They're not going anywhere next year. We've talked about that, and that's why you have to wonder. It's great for them, for him to retire. I wouldn't be surprised if they move DeAndre Hopkins this offseason as well.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump ahead a couple notes here as you talk about him stepping away from the game while he can. I want to talk a little bit about Tua, who has now been confirmed suffered his 3rd concussion in just 2.5 months.
And they let him play 2.5 quarters after that.
Yeah.
At which point, that explains a lot of his passing.
Yeah, that does. I will say that it does, at least from the report that I read, it was post, like they didn't realize it at the time he was fine, and then he showed concussion symptoms. As someone who has had a concussion, or like I had one at the time and did not realize it, maybe that's believable. I obviously don't love the fact that the Dolphins right here saying he's only had 2 concussions when we all know he's had 3. Like, don't lie about it. But
all I'm going to say is part of that settlement was they were supposed to have people looking specifically if a player hits their head on the field, they should be getting evaluated regardless of whether they thought they had symptoms. And by all accounts, no evaluation happened. And it didn't take but a microsecond for people to go and find the play where they're pretty sure that he got a concussion in the second quarter, after which point his play demonstrably fell off a shelf.
Yeah. So the big question is going to be, what does Tua do? And I know that this cannot be an easy conversation to have. I mean, he is a competitor. Dude is unfortunately suffered just all kinds of horrible injuries over the past 4 or 5 years. When you go all the way back to college with his hip injury that people said he's not going to be able to play again. He's not going to be the same guy. He overcomes that. Then comes out, looks like he's going to not be the starter for Miami anymore. Has a good year. Looks like he's figured everything out with Mike McDaniel. And now 3 concussions in 2 months. I am not a doctor, so I'm not going to pretend like I know what that means, but I feel like that's not good. That's very bad for you. Should he just step away? I mean, he's a guy who can probably get any job in the NFL media if he wanted it, right? Like, he could step off the field today, I would think, join one of the TV networks. Maybe he doesn't make $20 million a year, but I bet he'd make 7, 8, 9 with the way that these TV personalities get paid. So you're not getting paid as much as you do on the field, but at least you get to walk away knowing you're going to be fine down the road, because that's not something you want to mess with. And I don't want to like count another man's money. I don't want to take money out of his pocket, but like, as just as a human being, it worries me to sit here and think about the fact that like 3 concussions in 2 months, like that's not normal. And the plays all over Twitter, like that wasn't that bad of a play. Like that's something that could probably happen on any tackle, right? Like it's just his legs got wrapped up, he fell, he hit his head on the field. If I hate saying it this way, but like if that's all that caused it, like I think you've got to seriously be worried about what this could mean for him moving forward.
Yeah, those are probably questions we'll have to answer during the offseason. I think the pressure is really going to be on the Dolphins and the NFL to end this season, because you have a team that's in contention. If the playoffs started today, they'd be in. They are a better team with Tua. They didn't win any games with Bridgewater, and Bridgewater's probably, you would say, regardless of how I felt about him as being Broncos franchise, he's one of the better backup quarterbacks you could have. He's a veteran guy. He's got talent. He can win you a game in a pinch. We'll see how it goes. Dennis and I briefly touched on this Monday because rumors were just coming out about him being in concussion protocol because of how late and things were going. I honestly do not think he should be allowed to play the rest of the season. He needs a little bit of time to rest, and then you see where you're at during the offseason.
Yeah, I know that they for sure ruled him out.
Only this week.
For this week. I would. We'll see what happens, but I really am obviously a little bit worried about his future. I mean, granted, Brandon Cooks, I believe, had like 4 concussions, but his was over years. It was not within a month span. I believe he had a concussion like every single year, and then there were talks about him hanging it up. I mean, again.
But you've seen, Steve Young's talked about his career ended early. Troy Aikman, very much his career ended because of concussions and because he had too many and he had to step away. It's happened for guys. I think that was part of the calculus for Andrew Luck too. It was not totally just concussions, but the massive amount of blows and injuries he was taking, and it's definitely got to be a big concern.
Yeah, it'll be something we're going to have to monitor moving forward, because right now I would imagine he's valued as like a top 10 dynasty quarterback. So if he were to, which nobody would blame him for walking away from the game, much like Andrew Luck did, I think it would rock probably the dynasty community and anybody who had to a roster, because you're going to be stuck kind of holding the bag just like you were with Andrew Luck when his announcement came out of nowhere. Obviously, this one would be more expected because of what's going on. So I guess I would ask, we obviously don't know anything right now, but what would you do if you roster Tua? Like, if there's no trade deadline in your leagues, are you trying to move on from him just to see if you can get anything? Or are you just holding him and hoping for the best?
I think you're probably holding him, hoping for the best. You're not going to get anything good right now. And, I mean, it's also possible he comes back with the weapons that he has.
Yeah.
I might wait, see if he comes back, plays a few games, and maybe move on to something safer next season.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of other quarterbacks who are in interesting situations, Derek Carr has reportedly been benched by the Raiders for Jarrett Stidham, because apparently Josh McDaniels needs to see more of Jarrett Stidham because he didn't get enough of that in New England. I mean,
They're playing the 49ers this week, and teams have not fared well against the 49ers, have also fared incredibly poorly the week after playing the 49ers. So welcome to your 0-2 stretch. I would say the biggest impact this has for me is I dropped Devontae Adams out of my top 25. And I know the tendency would be he is an incredible talent. So is DeAndre Hopkins. And when he had Trace McSorley last week, he got 10 targets. He caught 1 pass for 4 yards. This is championship week. I am not betting on Jarrett Stidham against the 49ers.
Yeah, that's going to be a fascinating discussion we will definitely have this offseason, because I think this to me signifies Derek Carr is done with the Raiders, and I believe they can get out of his contract. What does that mean for Devontae Adams, who I had him as like wide receiver 2 still, I think I had him wide receiver 3. I believe I did have him 2. I had a Jefferson Adams Cup for me. I don't know that he holds. I mean, is it crazy to say top 10 value if they bring in another? So we don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be.
Yep. So the potential out is at the end of this year.
It's before the Super Bowl, I believe.
It's $5.625 million dead cap, but his cap hit if they keep him is $34,875,000. So he's probably either renegotiating or they are letting him go. And you know what? I think he'll go somewhere else because.
Oh yeah, he'll get a starting job somewhere. But like I think the crazy thing about I was listening to NFL Sirius XM on NFL or the NFL channel on Sirius XM earlier today, and I want to say that they said when they were talking about Derek Carr and the Raiders that the Raiders have to make the decision on him though, but it's like 5 days after the Super Bowl, so like we might find out quickly.
I think
what's going to go on with it.
The fascinating thing for me is in the early part of the season when everyone wanted Josh McDaniels fired mid-season, Derek Carr was one of the people that stood up and gave an impassioned plea for his coach, and for his coach to essentially be throwing him under the bus gives me a moment of pause. I mean, we've talked about on paper, the offense of Adams, Waller, Renfro with Jacobs looked like it was going to be incredible. I don't know if this is just the Raiders throwing in the towel and doing something different, in which case you really do have to ask the question about Adams, because they already declined the 5th-year option on Josh Jacobs. This would indicate to me they're probably not going to pay the money it would cost to keep him. If you dump Derek Carr, who do you think exactly that you're getting? Because they've been mediocre, but not mediocre enough to get an incredibly high draft pick. And, Derek Carr probably ends up being the best of the free agent quarterbacks available, the guy you just set free. Are you going to get Jameis Winston? Is that a good vibe? Are you trying to, maybe he wants Jimmy G.
Good. I mean, the thing is, I feel like this quarterback – I think this offseason is going to be a lot of fun. It's something as weird as it is to say, because I'm really looking forward to the NFL playoffs with some of the teams that are going to get in and the games we're going to get. I'm really looking forward to this offseason, not just with the NFL draft class, which these quarterbacks are now being inflated a little bit. We hear Anthony Richardson's going to be a top 20 pick. Will Levis, top 10 pick. There's a realistic shot that Daniel Jones is going to be available, because the Giants, it seems like, are leaning toward keeping Barkley, and the cap space that they're looking at, if Daniel Jones doesn't he's not going to be able to get a top-end quarterback deal. So if he doesn't get that, does he just go onto the market? Because they can't franchise him and pay Saquon Barkley. You're looking at Ryan Tannehill might be done and available in Tennessee.
I think he is done, but health-wise, Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's going to be a lot of, as you mentioned, Jimmy G might be available. There's rumors that Aaron Rodgers might leave Green Bay, and it's going to be the Jordan Love era, but he's not going to retire. Like, I don't know that he would go to Las Vegas, but like there could be a lot of dominoes moving around here at the quarterback position. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see what happens. I mean, could Baker be making his way to Las Vegas? Like,
well, that's the question for Baker. He's played well enough that he'd probably get some offers. I still think if I was him, I'd stay back. And we need the domino. Is Tom Brady going to continue playing? We're pretty sure Matt Ryan's going, but we need these guys to actually officially probably retire. I'd be shocked if Ryan didn't retire.
Yeah.
But there's more questions than answers at quarterback, and then you have a wild card team. Like you're right. What if something happens with Tua, and then a Miami
Now
team that you
Miami's
figured
in
was
it, yeah.
pretty well set, who kind of pushed all their chips in on competing right now, is like, hey, we're competing with Skylar Thompson.
You know what would be? I don't know that would happen, but I'm just putting 2 and 2 together here. Would the Raiders and the Patriots make like a 1-for-1 trade? Send Derek Carr to New England and Mac Jones, who seems to just love Josh McDaniels, to the Raiders? Just be like, let's do this.
I mean, I don't know that Adams would want to stay there, and
He don't have a choice. He's signed for, I don't think he's out for another 2 years. He don't have a choice.
those guys can find their way out of places.
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know that Mac would be bad.
Well,
Mac doesn't have a wide receiver like
we've
Devontae
also
Adams
talked
either.
about wild card situations. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Arizona, if they decide they want to try to compete, go out and get some kind of veteran quarterback that can play the season, because they know they have Kyler Murray coming back at some point.
Yeah.
But I was listening to that Monday night Sunday night telecast when they're talking about him being ready to go in October. No way.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
way.
And I think there's a realistic shot that I would put it at 50-50 right now with Lamar being back in Baltimore too.
Well, that's the other big domino, like Lamar Jackson. And I think that's a reason why we potentially don't see him play. The Ravens have already locked up a playoff spot. Somebody pointed out, with him being on that franchise tag and having a knee issue, I wouldn't be going out there less than 100% and killing yourself. Pittsburgh, if nothing else, has a defense.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think
I'd try to save myself and play Cincinnati in Week 18 if I was going to put myself out there. I'm not rolling out there to play TJ Watt in a game that really won't impact my playoff ability.
Yeah, I really do not think that we see Lamar the rest of this season.
Regular season.
Yeah, regular season. Yes, we do have some more quarterback news, as Carson Wentz will now be the starters for the Commanders. He's another quarterback that could be available again. I don't know that he'd get another starting job, but he could be available again this offseason. Does this move the needle for you at all with the Commanders players?
I think Dennis put it the best on Monday. They have two options. They have Carson Heineke and Taylor Wentz, and they're both about the same.
That is very true. All right, let's talk about this Thursday night football game. It's going to probably be good for one side of the ball. We get the Cowboys versus the Titans. The Cowboys, Tony Pollard, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence are all questionable here. Should we be worried about Dallas looking past the Titans?
I mean, that's a legitimate concern for me, because we saw them play ragged against the Texans and barely win, and play ragged against the Jaguars and actually lose. This, on paper, looks to be another fairly winnable game, and you would really like to just assume Dallas is going to go out there and do their thing, and hopefully they will. Their defense, I need to see something out of their defense. This should be a fairly easy test, but they got pushed to the max by Minshew. They gave up 40 to the Jaguars. They got pushed by a Texans team that hasn't pushed anybody all season. So I kind of, I need to see a good performance from Dallas. I think Dallas needs to see a good performance from Dallas going into the playoffs. Their playoff position is pretty well set. I mean, technically on paper, they could still win the NFC East, but I don't see that happening. It does look like DeMarcus Lawrence came off the injury report, but the other two, Parsons and Pollard, are still on there, and Vander Esch got ruled out. So if they're missing Vander Esch and Parsons, to me, that's starting to be a question there. It would be kind of a bummer. I think they could get over missing Pollard if they had to miss him. Parsons, it's a hand injury, so we'll have to see how that goes. But I think Dallas needs to come out and play like they did against the Vikings and build up some confidence, because they have a Week 18 game against the Giants team. No, it's not the Giants. Against the Commanders, who are going to be scrapping for a playoff spot. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that ends up.
By the way, I want to jump back and forth here. Did you see that Derek Carr will be not even with the team for the final two games?
It's a weird flex.
Yeah. So I'm just going to pull this up because I was looking
Does
for.
he need? I want. Did something happen to him and he needs like
That I
some
don't
time
know.
off?
So Ian
Because it
Rappaport
felt like it
reported.
came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it says as part of discussions that took place over the last few days, both sides concluded that it was best that Raiders quarterback Derek Carr step away for the final 2 games to avoid obvious distractions, whatever that means. Sources say he won't practice, will be with the team, and will be listed as non-injury related. So he will not even be there. So that I don't know. But I'm going to be honest. I don't think it matters if the Cowboys look past the Titans here, as we're about to talk about the Titans side of things with the injuries and the players they don't have available. But I do think Dallas needs to get their stuff together. I actually think they're probably one of the better teams. Dak has not looked great this year. You mentioned that defense, which I believe started off this year as like a top 5 defense for most of the season. It's really kind of struggled here in the back half. I think they really need to start putting a couple good games together here as we get toward the playoffs to try and put together if they want to make a deep run. So I don't think that they're that far off of a team like the Eagles, who I think are one of the best teams in the NFL currently. I don't think the Cowboys are that far off from them. They've got to put together a couple good performances here to kind of keep that going. Hang on. More now. If the Raiders sit Derek Carr Sunday, it will be the 4th game he misses in 9 seasons and first due to non-injury. His salary of $33 million next year and $7.5 million, 24 guaranteed if he gets hurt. Oh, okay. I thought there was something else there. Anyways, Titans side.
You know, if you were a defense looking to get right, you want to face a quarterback who's 1-2, having gone 31 for 51 for 276 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions on the season. And that's what they get in Malik Willis, who's also on a short week.
So you want to know what makes that even better?
I thought you'd be impressed that I memorized Malik Willis's stats.
I mean, you know, it's there's not a
They're
lot
so
there
bad.
to memorize. Yeah, as I said, there's not a lot there to memorize. So what makes this even worse? Derrick Henry is now doubtful to play tomorrow night against the Cowboys. So he's not even likely have his best weapon to hand the ball off to.
His only weapon.
Yeah. So that's why I was saying I don't think it matters if the Cowboys look past the Titans, because I don't know why you've got to sit all your Titans at this point, and I don't know why we even want to watch this game.
I can't believe the Henry going to doubtful is a real blow for fantasy. So he must have. Dennis and I were trying to figure out why he only got 23 carries on Sunday. He must have gotten hurt.
Yeah. It just popped up less than an hour ago from Field Yates that he has now been moved to doubtful. So he is likely not playing tomorrow night.
You know what else is doubtful? Me watching this final Amazon game of the year.
I'm right there with you. There's a lot of really good college bowl games on tomorrow that I will be paying very close attention to, and not this game.
You know who else might retire this offseason? Al Michaels. He's like,
oh, man. I don't know if those contracts are guaranteed, but if they are, good for him because he got the bag. I'm taking the Cowboys. I just don't see how it said no Ryan Tannehill, no Derrick Henry. I don't see how the Titans overkill the Cowboys.
No, Dennis and I took the Cowboys too. Even if Derrick Henry was playing, I think they could have handled that. Malik Willis just has given them no dimension, and they have no passing weapons they've developed all season. There's no one behind Derrick Henry. It seemed like the moving on John Robinson was maybe a vote that Mike Vrabel needed a better roster, and maybe it still is. But I'm starting to wonder if this epic collapse doesn't end up falling back on Vrabel a little bit.
Hey, I mean, I don't root for anybody to get fired or fail, and I do hope Vrabel is able to stick around. He was a great Ohio State Buckeye, and I do think he's a good coach. Talked about at the beginning of this year, I did not think they were going to win that many games. And I said at the time, I thought that Tennessee was going to completely clean house. Trade Derrick Henry, Tannehill gone, Vrabel gone, GM gone. They just rebuild because it's just not – I don't want to say they're a bad team. They're a good team. They continue to make the playoffs, but they're not great. They're not going to get past. They're at their ceiling with what they have. They need to do something, and they just have not done that. So – we'll see what happens. Like I said, I feel like we're going into what I think, at least for me, is one of the more intriguing off seasons we've had in a while here. There's a lot of moving parts going on right now, and a lot of things could be changing the NFL landscape.
Yep. And there's good games this week. Tomorrow, not one of them.
Yeah, tomorrow's not one of them. So unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, we will be back Friday, Dennis, Matt, and myself, to talk about whatever happens in this game. Hopefully Dennis watches it, because it sounds like Matt and I won't be. But I'll definitely catch like the highlights and be able to talk about it. And then we will preview all of the Week 17 action to get you ready for your fantasy football finals that I hope all of you are playing in, since Matt and I, unfortunately, this year will not be. But until Friday, everybody have yourselves a great day.